This is March 18th, 2009, and our meeting will be again at Keegan's, which we enjoy so much. And Jean Barnhill will be the hostess, and Mary McArthur will give the program.
Start out with. My title was A Day Twice Removed, A Day in History Twice Removed, and so that turned out to be a little different. And it's going to be moving from the southeast to the northeast, then to the southwest. Okay, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you know how old I am, so I don't have to hide that anymore. I hid it for many years because I was 7 years older than Warren. And when he finally found out after about 10 years, he said, "That's wonderful." And all that time I'd been hiding it for nothing. Anyway, let's see. We had a real great childhood. My dad lost everything he had in the stock crash, so we were kind of poor for a while. But we still managed to have a cook most of the time, poor or not, because the poor things made so little. They just made practically nothing, the black people. I don't like to call them black people. I like to call them colored people. I think it's nicer. Anyway, we had sleds for the winter because we had snow. The hot as Hades in the summer, but wonderful storms. You know, anybody from the East knows what wonderful storms you had. Black skies and exciting lightning. Anyway, I'll just skip to high school. Oh, let's see. In grammar school, I was Queen of the Flowers on May Day one time. But I was not Queen of the May. We had a maypole and all that, and it was fun. Does anybody remember that, or am I too old?
No,
yeah. And they don't do a lot of those things anymore that I know of. Anyway, I was also a fast runner. I was second fastest in the 6th grade, and the fastest was the captain of the football team. Can you believe it? The way I poke today.
With him, you mean as a paramour, or running against him?
Oh, no. Just that particular grade, the 6th grade, had a race.
Oh, 6th grade was him.
Yeah, just a race. I'm a little, I can't calm down enough. Wait a minute.
Were you chasing him?
Then, no, I was very shy, believe it or not. And we walked to school in those days. We walked 2 miles. And through snow and rain. And it was fun kicking a rock along or taking a stick into a picket fence and making noise with it, and so forth. And then I'll skip to high school. And it's funny the things you remember, I swear. We had one girl who was delivered to school by a liveried chauffeur in a huge car. And when the teacher was out of the room, she could belch louder than anybody. I don't know if you all did that too. No?
Because of lack of ability for
Well, and then
That was
also
her claim to fame, right?
I'm sorry?
Her claim to fame was the...
Yeah, well, no, she was just one of the gang, but a good-looking girl. And so forth, but very wealthy. And the rest of us weren't. Not all of us, but some of us. Anyway, and there was also a funny boy. He was just the worst looking thing. He was from the country, gangly, and quite ugly, but funny. And he drove what we called a strip down. They cut the top off the car, just above the seats, and he had an old-fashioned Ford, big one, and he cut the top off. He didn't have a horn. He would belch loudly and beat the side of the car with his hand for a horn. And this is awful. This is terrible. His nickname was Snot.
No.
not for it. It is terrible.
Did the girl Belcher ever ride with him?
No way. We ran from him. And let's see, then I learned to play tennis, and I played tennis all day long when summer was there. I loved it. Still love it, but I can't play anymore. And then the Depression came along. In fact, during high school, I think it was awful, just terrible. And but I used to have wonderful clothes because I mostly wore hand-me-downs. And most of them, not most of them, but a lot of them were from my cousin's aunts. She had two aunts who went to Paris every year and went to the couturier places. And I got some of their clothes, and I had some beautiful clothes. Just beautiful when we weren't very well off at that point. Anyway, the Depression, what else happened? Oh, I remember my mother was very creative. I forgot to tell you that she was a paralegal, one of the pioneers, I'd say. And the governor would want her to go to the conventions because she was so good. And she did Pitman shorthand, which is much more difficult than Word. And she typed with 4 fingers and didn't look at she didn't even know the key. Well, she must have known the keyboard, but 4 fingers, she could go 90 miles an hour. And had to look at the keyboard, I'll put it that way.
What did your father do?
Well, he sold advertising at first, and he was offered a very good job in New York, and my mother wouldn't go. She didn't want to leave her family. She had 4 sisters and 3 brothers, and her mother and father and a great aunt and a couple of others. She didn't want to leave, so he had to not do that. So he switched to being a real estate broker. What's going on? Oh. I'm going to have a drink of water. In the Depression, it was pretty depressing. My great aunt came to visit us for 2 months and stayed 2 years. So I gave her my room, and I went up and slept in the attic, which I didn't mind at all. You know, when you're a teenager, you want to get away from everybody anyway. And I love the pigeons making cooing noises on the roof and all that, and being surrounded by interesting things, like the costume trunk and things like that. And then after that, my dad had to sell the house, and I left something out, but that's okay. Anyway, I went out and found an apartment for them. My brothers were off at the university. My oldest brother helped put my other 3 through school, and my oldest brother was really quite a guy. He's held several jobs. He booked dances for the university and for the fraternities. He had an invitation to every fraternity on campus. He couldn't join any because he was too busy. He ran a boarding house, and they used to call him the capitalist because he'd be eating steak and everybody else would be eating stew. And of course, they kidded him. And his nickname became Hooey, said he was full of hooey. Anyway, he was quite a guy. In the long run, he became one of the vice presidents of Westinghouse.
What's your maiden name?
Hobbs.
Louis Hobbs.
Well, that was a nickname. Yeah. Well, I have an even funnier one than that. He used to date an English girl, and her last name was Hawkins, so they called themselves Hobbs and Hawkins. Anyway, let's see. Then after that, in the apartment, I'm really bearing my soul. My grandfather came to live with us, and it was awful. It was too crowded, so I couldn't wait to get away from home. And my aunt in New York, who lived in Bronxville, out about 16 miles north of New York, invited me up there, and this was in '39. and I went to see the World's Fair. They took me to the opera, saw plays, and I just fell in love, and the museums, oh boy. I fell in love with New York, but I had to go back home. And then about a year later, she invited me back again. So maybe it was 2 years. Anyway, I had a ride up with some friends, so I went with practically no money. Anyway, I visited, stayed with my aunt and uncle in Bronxville again, and I happened to know a guy that I'd met at the beach, and he lived up in Pelham Manor, and which is a very nice place too. I never got up there, but never even thought about going up there. Anyway, he'd pick me up every morning and take me into the city, and I'd go look for a place to live. And I wound up in the Episcopal girls' home called the Sage House in the village. And I don't know how that happened, except my mother must have taken care of that, because she was an ardent Episcopalian. And I really don't even remember how I got there or why, but that must be it. Anyway, I met my this is crazy, for $9 a week, you got 2 meals a day, 2 good meals a day in a room. And I think
Indoor plumbing.
oh yes. It was, and very good food too,
What
and
year
very nice people.
What year are we now?
Well, let's see, that's about 41. Yeah.
Yours is getting long in the tooth, aren't you?
You know how long in the tooth I am now.
You know, maybe I stayed at a place like that in Pittsburgh when I first went
Yeah,
to
they're
art
very
school.
nice.
Yeah, with the meals and everything and
Yeah.
that price, and it was lovely.
They had
Lovely,
one in
yeah.
Chicago, too.
Heavily endowed, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, I met a couple of nice gals, and we had both, all of us had seen my sister Eileen, if you remember that play. And we just couldn't wait to get an apartment and get out of the place, after several months. And I had a job by that time. I forgot about that. I went to an employment agency, and I could do negative retouching. And anyway, I had a job in the lobby of the Waldorf, as working for a photographer named David Burns. And that was the most interesting job, because there was a place where I would do the negative retouching, and I could see out when anybody came along to talk, and I'd rush out and be the receptionist. And I met the most interesting people, really big stars and so forth, and military people. And then my brother was very ill, and I had to go home. He was dying with cancer. And what I never thought...
Your oldest brother?
No, he's still alive. He's 90, he'll be 96 in April.
Oh, wonderful.
I have to get some more.
Longevity.
How many brothers did you have?
4.
Oh, you're the only girl.
Only girl. Well, I forgot about that part. They used to pick on me like crazy, of course, but we were very close. They'd defend me if anybody said something wrong or, tried to bother me or anything. And they called me, at a certain stage, they called me jugleg, fatso, chubby. You know how brothers can be. They even I had a wonderful godfather who gave me wonderful gifts. And one of them was a gold bead necklace, real, the real stuff. And one of my brothers grabbed it when we were visiting my grandfather on his farm and threw it down the well.
Oh,
That was the end of that.
Lord. You dive for it.
Oh, I tell you. Now that I got off the track, where am I?
You
went back home because he was dying of leukemia?
Yes. Oh, and I forgot to ask the man to please hold my job for me. I just assumed he would. But I was gone a month. Why should he hold my job for me? I got back, no job. Somebody else had it. Oh, it broke my heart, because I just loved it. Anyway, so I got another job at the British Purchasing Commission, and that was fascinating. I worked for a tall Englishman with a walrus mustache, and he came in, and it was, in the winter it was bitter cold, and he had these overcoats that came down to his ankles. I really had a secret crush on him, but he didn't know it, and he called me Hobby. And so one day I came back late, he was waiting for me. I would edit his letters and his mail, because he didn't have time to read it all, and I'd streamline them for him. Anyway, I came back late. He said, "Oh, there you are, Hobby. I thought possibly you'd been, not raped, seduced."
Oh,
And very casual about it. And every day, every morning at 10 o'clock, if the coffee didn't come in on this tea wagon thing, they'd raise Cain. Most of the people were British. And then in the afternoon at 4 o'clock on the dot, if that tea wagon didn't come through the door.
Did you fix it?
No.
Well,
They had tea boys who did nothing else. And they ran errands. And,
you had to make sure they were there, though, right?
oh, absolutely. If that wagon didn't come through the door, you'd think a bomb had dropped. Now, let's see. Well, I wasn't a career person, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. And, I forgot about my radio program.
You had very interesting jobs for not being a career person.
Yeah.
Well, I had taken singing lessons, and I meant to bring the CD. I'll bring it later. Anyway,
player to go with it.
I had 52 programs, 15 minutes long each one, 4 times a week, and the whole job lasted 3 months. I don't even know how I heard about it. Somebody knew they were looking for a singer at the it was a big station, 50,000 watts, and I got fan mail from Wyoming, Canada, way off.
Did you have any education in music?
Yes, I had, just singing lessons, that's all.
What did
Private.
you sing? What type of things did you sing?
Opera and Hallelujah, Mozart's Hallelujah.
Mostly classical.
I sang in the church choir, I forgot to mention that. My mother popped all of us into the choir as long as the minute we could read, 6 years old. And so I sang in the choir for many years. And the choir director gave me free lessons. He thought I had something, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, twice a week. And, that makes me think of something. One time in this apartment I had found for my mother and dad, my mother was going to go call on the people across the street. And so she wanted me to go with her. I went with her. And the people said, "Well, how is your singing coming along?" I said, "Oh, just fine, but my voice needs to be stronger." One of the women said, "If it gets any stronger, we're going to move."
Oh, I heard you practice.
With the windows open, in the spring, and practicing the scales over and over and over. And I did practice faithfully. Anyway, let's see, I decided I wanted to be a singer, so I went in New York, I took some lessons, and this is crazy. Really crazy. I went up to, one reason I wanted to be there was to go to the opera. I just loved the opera. And one time a friend of mine from home who was up there learning to be an actress, or trying to be one, and break into the big time, she called me one night and said, "Can you take my place at the Met?" "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I'm a super, and I can't go tonight. Would you go in my place? They're having Aida." Oh, I jumped at the chance. So I went, and one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had. you weren't told what to do. You just would go up that way. You climbed 8 flights. They didn't have, I don't know if they had elevators or not, but I got to get a drink.
Super, what is, you're going to explain what a super is.
I will. A super is just somebody who walks around in the crowd, doesn't sing or anything, in a costume to suit the opera.
Maybe the supernumerary.
Anyway, they don't tell you what to do. You just have to find your own costume and so forth. And I wound up carrying a palm frond. But watching the other people, all these people in the same big room, the male dancers were stuffing their hose with rags to make them look like muscles. They pinned their costumes together with giant safety pins, and I don't know how they got by with that, except there was a scrim curtain, and that probably disguised it a little bit, softened it a little bit. I didn't know that till I got on stage. Well, it just, my hair was standing on end. I was so thrilled, milling around in the crowd, trying to look like an Egyptian. And I knew the music, so somehow I started singing. And I didn't know the words. And just all of a sudden, this great big blonde woman sidled over to me and said, "Be quiet, if you don't belong to the union." Oh! So that took care of that. So after it was over, I got $1 for it. I went down on the stage, and there was nobody in the audience that I could see, and nobody on the stage, so I started singing just by myself for fun. Then I could say I've sung it for men.
Did somebody
crazy?
hear you?
Oh.
Were you hired on the spot? Yeah.
Oh, no, but I wish I had thought of applying to be a super. I never thought of it.
Did you
know.
put on $1 a performance?
$1. It wasn't that, it was just the experience.
I know, Mary.
But is that
Oh,
what
it
you
was
paid
so
the dollar?
thrilling. And the thing is, it isn't half as loud when you're on the stage as it is in the audience, hearing the music. It's not half as loud.
Is that what you were paid, was $1?
$1.
Just
Yeah.
for one night?
One night. And I don't know why I didn't apply
Yeah.
for myself, but I did. Well, you know, you're busy. Then let's see, after that, well, then I'd always wanted to go to art school. And I had won a scholarship at home during the Depression, but we couldn't afford for me to go. And it was in New York, the Flatiron School.
Oh, I love that building.
Have you heard of that?
I love the building.
Yes, me too. Well, I don't think the art schools in existence hadn't been in existence for a long time, but a friend of mine that I knew here, who was an artist, belonged to the Scottsdale Artist League, she had gone to that school, and so we probably would have met there, because we were about the same age. Anyway, I signed up at the Art Students League, and I wouldn't take $1 million for that. And I couldn't get the teacher I wanted, so I took Mr. Louis Boucher, and he has something in the Met, and I forget, Metropolitan Museum, and it was pretty good. But he really didn't teach us much. He was more amusing than teaching. And I don't know whether I should tell you one thing he said or not to the class. Well, I've already been vulgar. I might as well be more vulgar. Okay, one day in class he said, painting should be exciting. It should be more exciting than having an orgasm. At that point, I didn't even know what an orgasm was. That's the truth. And then they said that in the summer school where he taught up in Woodstock, New York, that the students would go fishing and catch good fish, and then Boucher would get them to paint it, and then he'd eat them, and they wouldn't get their own fish. Well, may not be true. One fish. And anyway, that was one of the greatest years of my life. I just loved it. You can't believe it. It cost $17 a month, 3 hours a night, 5 nights a week.
Oh, my.
Can you believe it? And wonderful lighting and wonderful
You
models.
got $1 a night for being a stripper.
Yeah.
It was less than $1 an hour. Yeah, 17. Anyway, less than $1 a night. You're right. And then let's see, how did I meet Warren? Oh, both my roommates got married, and so I'd always wanted to have an apartment of my own. So I got this little teeny-weeny apartment. It was really probably a bedroom with a tiny closet and a bath, but it had 3 big long mirrors on the doors. That was nice. And the kitchen was a converted closet. Only one person could get into it and move around. Anyway, one Saturday I was cleaning the apartment. I'd just gotten it. And I went out. Something told me to go to the hardware store. So I threw on a raincoat, an old red hat, it was raining, and walked over to the hardware store. And this clerk couldn't seem to understand what I wanted. And Warren was lurking in the corner over there watching me. And so he came over to take over the clerk's job. And he had on the turquoise ring. I'd never seen turquoise before. Beautiful ring with a great big stone in it. And quite handsome. In fact, he looked like one of my first cousins. I forgot to say that I have 21 first cousins. I had that many. And 3 adopted cousins. That's not the word.
That
Anyway.
must have been a family gathering where you all would get together.
Oh, we had lots of fun. We'd visit back and forth and so forth. Most of them were in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, right in there, Florida. And so we were real close. I got to get another drink.
Was your apartment in the village in Greenwich Village?
No, not that one. This one was uptown on 68th Street, West 68th Street, just off of Central Park. It was an old house converted. And I couldn't afford the east side, good grief. Well, no, I did share an apartment with 2 friends on the east side on 53rd Street. And then it was sold. And I was so mad because it was sold. We were awful. I put garlic in the oven and turned the oven on before we left. And I forget what else we did. Something awful. We were so angry. It was such a great location. Oh, and I forgot about the Easter parade. Oh, boy. Those 2
I wish we were
roommates.
taking notes on all this.
Yeah, I should have.
Thank goodness, yes.
Well, anyway, one time we all wanted to be in the Easter parade, so we made these nutty hats, and I forgot to bring that picture. Oh, boy. It was we would go down to 38th Street in the wholesale hat section and buy hats. Good hats, really pretty. Much cheaper than in the stores. And so I made this one. I bought a copper toque, layered. It had layers around it. And I took 2 balloons, a yellow one and a blue one, and covered them with tulle, and made a great big bow with tulle, and had the balloons out like this on the side. So, and my roommate wore a lampshade for a hat, and I forget what the other one was. No, we only 2 of us went. The other gal thought we were nuts.
Were you photographed?
Oh, all over the place. People were hanging out of bus windows photographing me. And I ran into somebody from home whom I just knew very casually, not very well. He was so embarrassed he didn't even want to speak to me. Really, that's a small town for you. No, it is, because I forgot about singing in the nightclub. Oh, boy.
Like the way you
My
turn
coach,
the
I
jams out.
had a coach, I should have made notes, and he got me a job in a nightclub in the village. You know, it was just nothing, but it was a start. But it wasn't what I wanted at all, naturally. And I found out I was supposed to drink with the customers. Well, I didn't like that. But I lasted a week because I put my glasses on and drank beer.
Oh.
They
Proprietor,
fired you for that?
they did. Well, I wanted to be fired. I didn't like the job.
How old were you by this time?
And how old was I?
40.
Oh, no.
No.
No, I wasn't.
What were you doing in your 20s?
I was 30.
30.
30-something, 30, probably 32. I've got my sequence all mixed up.
That's okay.
I think we need to get back to Warren. You left it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go over my time. Good grief.
Oh, that's all right.
Well, back to Warren. Okay. So he came over and he insisted on helping me, and he did, and then he wanted me to go to his apartment and have lunch.
See his etchings, huh?
Yeah, see his etchings. So, what?
His apartment?
Yeah. He said, it's all right, my roommate's there. It's okay. So we went to the apartment, and his roommate was there, and we had lunch. And I saw he had this little TV. I've never seen another one like it. It was about this big, and the TV picture was like this. And I've never heard of such a thing. And be, living in the woods. They were brand new, I guess. Pretty new. And so then I took him out to meet my aunt and uncle. Oh, Lord. Let's see.
Still before the war, isn't it?
Oh, no. No, it's after the war.
After the war. Well,
Yeah, in
41 was what
I guess it was 49 when I met
Oh.
Warren.
49?
Warren. And I have here I have a picture of him. Well, I'll show those later. Anyway, I was babysitting that night for my cousin, who from North Carolina, who had married a New York guy, and they had lived in this great big apartment. And she had a new baby, the first one, and she didn't know who to have to babysit, and so she asked me if I would. They wanted to go out with a couple they knew and have dinner, and so I said yes. And I told Warren, I said, he wanted to take me home. I said, I have to go. I'm babysitting for my cousin tonight, and before dinner, and he didn't believe me. He was just furious.
He was furious?
He didn't think I was telling the truth, because he let me out at this swanky apartment building, and I'm sure he knew I couldn't afford to live there. Anyway, I went upstairs with a dazed look, and my cousin said, Curdy, what's the matter with you? He said, you look so funny. I said, well, I showed him this card Warren had given me. He said, don't forget I'm your friend, Warren McArthur, Jr. And I thought he was some kind of a nut. What?
What did your cousin call you?
Curdy. Well, my whole name I was called Mary Curtis back home. And one of my nicknames was Curdy. Anyway, what's the matter with you, Curdy? He said, you look so funny. And I told her about the guy. She said, why didn't you bring him up to have a drink here, for heaven's sake? I said, well, I didn't think of it because of the way I met him. And he drove off in a storm, really mad, because he didn't believe me. Anyway, finally I heard from him again. It was about a week, I guess it was. And so I went out with him. And then after that, he called me up. I think he just wanted an excuse to call. Maybe that was it. That was the first time he did it. Oh, boy. He said, some friends are coming to town, and I want to take them somewhere to see some sights. Do you have any ideas? So I thought he was a nut, and I said, well, yeah, take him to 42nd Street to the flea circus. And he did. He took him, and he said, I almost didn't call you again.
Oh.
But he did. And
What was the
then
flea
I-
circus?
a flea circus? You ever heard of a flea circus? Oh, dear. On 42nd Street, they used to have these fleas that jumped around. I've never been to one, but you passed it, and they were supposed. The fleas were supposed to do something. I don't know what, because I never saw them. I never went to one.
How in the world did that come off?
I don't know. Don't ask me. They used to have crazy things on 42nd Street. And, you know, great big posters, billboards up above with smoke coming out of a cigarette, real smoke
I
and all
remember
that.
that.
Yeah.
I remember
It
that.
was interesting.
Freezing.
Anyway, I took him to meet my aunt and uncle in Bronxville. Then he took me to meet his father and second wife. And they lived on Park Avenue. And they had this apartment, big apartment. And my father-in-law had a bar. I've never seen another one like it because he designed it and made it. With red leather. And there's two stools. It was very small, about like this. It had a red leather roof attached to the ceiling. Very interesting. And I just had never seen anything like that before. And they were very interesting and different. Very different. Some people were playing bridge over in a corner. Well, I don't mean they were freaks or anything. It was just different.
What did Warren do at that time?
He was working for his uncle, who had, what do you call it, lit up signs within New York Central Station.
Like
And it
neon?
was something different. No, not neon. They were lit from behind. It was something new, and I don't know if he started the idea or what. The family was quite inventive. Anyway, finally, I don't know, we had a fuss or something. I got mad and got tired of New York and went home. And I'd been at home about 6 months or so. And one day Warren shows up at the door. No, he didn't. He called up first. And from Durham. He'd been visiting a friend at Duke there, who used to go to Duke. And so he came down and asked me to marry him, to go to California, to a job there. Oh, Lord, I'm holding him up.
Is it cold?
Yeah. Is it time for lunch? No, not yet. So anyway, we had a small wedding and got married and drove to California, and I had never been west. And I'll just never get over the feeling I had when I first saw it. It just bowled me over. I didn't think much of it, actually, because the mountains looked like they were painted a backdrop. But when we crossed into Arizona, Warren got out and kissed the pavement.
Why?
He couldn't wait to get back to Arizona. He was born here.
Oh.
But he went to school in the East. His mother and father were divorced when he was about 8, I think. And then, no, younger than that, 6 or 7. And so he went to live with his mother. His mother changed his name to John Peasley McArthur. Peasley, Peasley. That was her maiden name. And of course, it was a terrible thing for her because in the old days, I know you've heard that in the summer, most of the women who had children went up north to get cool, and the men played around a little bit on the side, some of them. Anyway, this gorgeous woman enticed my father-in-law, and they got a divorce. And I had never met my father-in-law before.
He's going to fix the air, I just told him.
What's that?
To fix the air conditioning.
Okay. Anyway, they were divorced, and very hard on Warren. He was sent to school. He went to school in Philadelphia. That was later. First, he went to school in Dubuque. His mother went back to live with her mother in Dubuque, Iowa. And his mother was raised in a 22-room house in Dubuque, original, I hear. And I was crazy about her. At first I was scared to death of her, but she was so accomplished. She and my father-in-law helped start the Phoenix Country Club, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah,
Right?
yes. And Warren and I couldn't join. We didn't have enough money. We were eligible, but we couldn't join.
Did he have brothers and sisters, or was he the only
He had,
child?
he had two sisters, two older sisters.
Okay, could I interrupt just a
Yeah.
second? Now, what was the name again that was her maiden name, but, so it was McArthur that, who started the Phoenix Country Club?
When Warren's mother and father.
Okay, Warren's
Warren's mother.
and father, so their name would have been McArthur.
Yes, it was.
Well, her maiden
Yes.
name was Peasley.
But her maiden name was Peasley.
Okay.
And she won many golf tournaments at the country club. She was champion, I think, for 3 years, women's champion, and she also won the Arizona State Championship. And, well, the house they had was at 37 North Country Club Drive, and it's now cut off. You can't, it's gated. It didn't used to be gated. It's an unusual looking house. You can't miss it if you pass it. It's different. Anyway, she has some trophies, I think, on display there. And we have silver things that are engraved with her winnings on them. You know,
What was her first name?
Lorraine.
Lorraine?
She also helped start the botanical gardens. And she helped friends start Jokaki Inn. And she was quiet in the background, but that's what she did.
So you lucked out and married into a nice family without even knowing what you were getting into.
That's true.
Especially with all these interests, lifelong interests. I mean, knowledgeable people in town. Yeah.
Well, I was afraid of my mother-in-law at first because she was so accomplished. Lord have mercy, she was a good painter, watercolors. She was a good cook. She was a good seamstress, good housekeeper. She embroidered beautifully.
Wow.
You name it.
A
A champion golfer and a good bridge player, so
Oh
forth.
my God. What is
Good
it?
hostess.
What could she not
She
do?
had everything, and I was just terrified at first. And then we became best friends for 15 years. Best friends. I just adored her. And she called me her third daughter. Anyway, I should have brought, oh dear. I didn't prepare this very well. Well, Warren's oldest sister's name was Lorraine, and she married a man named Hank Lindenmeyer. And he had studied at the Art Students League with the top man, I forget, George, never mind. Anyway, he did flowers. He grew flowers. He didn't have to work. He had plenty of money. And so he grew flowers and painted them. And they're just gorgeous. And the second gal married a guy from, he was from Massachusetts. And they lived in Rye, New York. And let's see, and he was connected with Radio City somehow. I don't know how. Pretty good job. And she used to take the children out in a buggy on the ice and ice skate with them and push them around in the buggy. What else can I say? And let's see. And Warren and I, well, he didn't like the job he was going to in California, so we had quite a time. He tried 2 or 3 places. We lived in Salinas, we lived in Ventura, then Salinas. I hated Salinas because it would be cold and damp and cloudy in the morning. Then at noon, the sun came out and all these, and the wind came up, and lettuce leaves would blow down the street. The lettuce capital of the world. We hated it. So then we moved down to Manhattan Beach. And I don't know why we wound up there, but we did. Oh, I know, Warren had a job at Northrop, that's why. Incidentally. Am I crazy? I guess so. Anyway, then I became pregnant, and I remember swimming in we had a 1-room apartment. It was a real neat little place, but very small.